So live from Pahrump. What is this show called?
The Tech Talk Taco Tuesday.
Tech Talk Taco Tuesday. And you're going to make noise and play with that pen. So he talks more now, but now he's getting fidgety. This is Jimmy Lewis. That's Logan Tyler. We are your hosts for Tech Talk, where Logan promises to answer 4 out of 10 questions that we received tonight without referring to a reference manual, right?
All right.
So I'm sure that everybody has some sort of question that they want answered. And the first one, of course, is, Logan, what kind of tequila are we drinking today?
No idea. Don't drink that.
Yeah, that's good. And I'm not drinking it either because I'm going to get in my motorhome and drive up to the KTM Adventure Rider Rally up in Colorado. So no tequila for me tonight. I'm going to keep it on the stay awake. I'm going to go run the Red Bull. So that's good. Oh, here we go. Questions are starting to pour in. So no tequila, Sean. Sorry about that. Next week, I'm sure we'll try to fix that problem. Dimitri, and you know what? We needed to get you a computer so you could see the questions. That would help too, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you could pronounce these names, because I can't. Figure out. So Danny Anzanello. That's what I think it's called. I've got an old dog of a 2005 CRF 450R that is heavily modified for woods and long distance work. Giant tank, comfy seat, etc. Would it be a problem for a tour of Idaho with a carburetor and all these elevation changes? Also, you guys got to play with the new KTM 150 TPI, but I haven't heard much about it. A good all-around bike for a lighter rider. Okay, so you've got 2 questions there, Dimitri. I'll answer the first one first. So would a CRF 450R be good for the tour of Idaho? No, not an R. And the reason for that is mostly because of the number one, the transmission. You have a motocross gearbox, short ratio transmission. Am I right, Logan?
Yes.
Yes. And number 2, the power delivery is pretty abrupt and aggressive for, especially when you get in the tight technical parts where you would need that low first gear, and then all of a sudden you have a snappy power band, and so that kind of just throws that bike out of the water for that. So the carburetor is really not a problem. The elevation changes aren't that great in the tour. I know you do get up to close to 10,000, but I think you're always up around at least 3, so it's not a huge, it'll run a little bit bad at the high altitudes, but I could see doing it on a carburetor bike, but not that bike, not a motocross bike, not any motocross bike. In fact, it's not just your Honda. If somebody said they were going to do it on a KTM SX, even though it was fuel injected, I'd say that's a mistake because of the transmission ratios. Because if you gear it so that first gear becomes usable in the small few times that you're really going to need that first gear, so you don't fry your clutch, so you don't overheat the bike, then when you're going down those long sections of fire roads and some little highway transfer sections and stuff, you're going to be hating it. And then your fuel economy goes out the window and all the kinds of stuff like that. So carburetor's not the issue. Transmission is the issue. And you could always, not on that bike, you wouldn't want to change the needle. Actually adjust it while you were riding. So not very easy to do. So yes. And also, you guys got to play with the new KTM TPI 150, but I haven't heard much about it. Is it a good all-around bike for a lighter rider? Yes. Think so?
Sure.
Sure. I'm a heavier rider, and I rode it, and I had a good time. I think they set that thing up for the 160-pound-ish rider, but I've always been a fan of the KTM 200, and I kind of miss that bike. And the reason is because I like the small, light bike, high revvy nature and stuff. But the 200 still has quite a bit of torque. But I was still pretty impressed with the amount of torque that the 150 had. I think we talk about it a little bit in our riding impression of the TPI bikes, probably ever so slightly. But I think if you're lighter, you're not going to miss the torque that the 200 that I need on the 200 for when I'm riding. It's like, Logan, when you get on your 120, have you ridden your 125?
Only from Johnny's to here.
Okay, just up and
To
down,
our house.
up and down the street a little bit, and
Yep.
you didn't blow it up.
No,
Okay, did it feel like it had a lot of torque?
not much.
Not much, compared to your 85.
Yes,
Okay,
but not compared to the 250.
okay, not compared to a 254 stroke.
Yes.
Okay, but it is a 125.
Yeah.
So that's a lot less. So, anyways, but yeah, I think you'll like the I think you'd like the 150 for a lighter guy. Definitely not a CR 450, that's for sure. So, Victor, question: do the gasoline with added ethanol will make more rust in a carb compared to an old non E15 gas in a bike that you don't use a lot? Okay, I'm going to decipher this question. You want to translate for me? What's the question? He wants to know
If it'll.
if the ethanol gas is worse than the old non-ethanol gas. What's the answer?
Yes.
Yes, good. Okay, good. That's one. You're on your way. Actually, we'll give you the answer. You answered the torque question on the 125 pretty good. So you got 2 out of 10 so far. And I think, well, no, actually, I've asked him 2 other things. Do you give me any I don't knows? Where are we at? You got to keep track. I'm just rattling my lips here. I mean, I'm just making my lips flap up and down and saying things. You got to keep track of all this stuff and apologize to people when we screw up. You can put your name on the list first. So the gasoline with ethanol, yes, it is bad. The reason it is bad is because it attracts water. And then it also corrodes, or it's hard on some of the materials. It's bad on the fuel lines. I haven't seen any benefits from it. Anybody know any benefits from ethanol in the gas? Anybody? Yeah. More octane. A little bit more octane. Yes.
More money.
More money for corn farmers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all about supporting the economy, but not your carburetor doesn't care about our economy. And if you don't use a bike, actually grab that Techron stuff over there. If you're not riding your bike a whole lot, I would suggest putting this stuff in it. Like, was that an ad read or what? We got to talk to them. Actually, got to talk to Chris Johnham because they should probably put the Techron in there if you're going to leave that fuel in there. I had really good success with that stuff. How many bikes do we have in the garage, Gabe? Like, there's how many just start? Like 20, 25?
Yeah.
And they all started after sitting for 4 to 6 months with ethanol gas in them, unfortunately, because we can't get the clear gas out here, the ethanol gas. We could go to the airport probably and get some, 100 octane, maybe. They don't have it out here? No? Why is the no on that one?
Are you in Vegas?
It's no good?
The 100 Lola isn't very good.
The 100, it isn't good.
No.
Yeah, well, then we can't really get clear gas out here very easily. So we put that stuff in there. So I wouldn't let it sit for very long. If you start it up every so often, it's pretty good. So what the ethanol does, what I've been told it does, is it attracts the water, so it absorbs the water, and then the water is in your gas, and it's real easy for it to get in there, like when it's in the gas tank. Maybe not in a dry climate, but in humid climates, it's even more of a problem. And then when that water gets down in your carburetor and then the gas starts evaporating off, then the water starts attaching to stuff, and bad things happen. So don't use it. Let's see, George and the Bartels are here from St. George. Good. Yeah. Screen looks fuzzy. Clean the lens. No, your screen is fuzzy. Let's see. That CRF has a brick of a 12-ounce flywheel and steel valves and a recluse, so I run 1547. It works great. Thanks for the green light on the carb. Okay. I'm wrong. Wow. Check me down. I told you I can answer 9 out of 10. Now I got to be perfect the rest of the night because he obviously had that figured out. As long as your carburetor's pretty good. Hey, Chris Parker's out there. Chris from Rottweiler Performance. He's missing us. He couldn't lock me in the dyno room, so I'm still alive. He's probably also headed to the KTM Adventure Rider Rally, where he has a really mean KTM 690 that he's gonna show everybody a bike that I hate. I'm known as a KTM 690 hater. So maybe you can try to convert me. Let's see. Talking about ethanol gas, Dimitri says, storing carved bikes with stable in it or drain everything and store dry. No. Don't store them dry. I've not had any good luck with that. And here's the reason is like when they dry out, especially when you've had ethanol gas in there, the rubber parts in there seem to get pretty brittle. They don't like to be wet and then dry and wet and then dry. And by wet, I mean wet with gas. That's what that Techron stuff is for. I mean, I've had luck with, the stable stuff. There was 2 or 3 things we were using before. We were trying different stuff, everything from 2-stroke oil to stable. And then there was another one. It's another Seafoam. Seafoam actually seemed like it was able to clean the carburetors a little bit. The stable actually seemed like it helped the gas a little bit, but nothing's been as good as that stuff in my opinion. So, don't store them dry, especially the newer, more modern carburetors, the pumper carburetors that have that pump diaphragm in there, because it's really hard to get that thing dry to begin with. And then when that's your last little bit of gas in there and that evaporates out, it plugs up passages that you didn't even know existed inside that carburetor. So ultrasonic cleaner is all I can tell you. Buy an ultrasonic cleaner. So, okay, yeah. Brian C. England says, comparison of coolant. Lots of info on the internet, lots of marketing, but what's Jimmy's take on the value of stuff like engine ice or Evans or water wetter versus standard 50/50 peak coolant? My kid has a 2006 KTM 200 XCW. She's boiling on moderate days, which she says it's 70 degrees at 5,000 foot of elevation. It's jetted right, not slipping the hell out of the clutch, steady progress, a 1.8 bar cap, and new top end. So, man, that on that bike, boiling is. I have one of those. I have what's mine? A 2005, I think. And it rarely, I don't even have a cooling fan on that one. And I use it for setting up King of the Motos when I used to do that. So, I don't think so what's my take on the coolants? Let's kind of roll back to the beginning of the question. I like, not necessarily 50/50, but water, good deionized water with a little bit of coolant in it, maybe 25% coolant if I think it's going to freeze. And then I add water wetter to it. And I've seen a 3 to 5 degree drop, and when I did that, and it was actually tested using sensors in front of the radiator and behind the radiator. So I knew the temperature of the water coming out of the motor. I knew the temperature of the water going into the motor, and we were trying different coolants on it and doing a similar loop. Actually at about 6,000 feet elevation. We were doing it on 354 stroke though, on a KTM 354 stroke. And we tried a lot of the different coolants in there. It was tough to actually do the what's the one that you have to, the Evans is the one you had to flush everything out. And you actually almost have to strip the system. They have a flush that you use. But anyways, we did all that stuff, and I didn't see that big of a big difference in the temperature reduction, just in how well it cooled. What made a big difference there was bigger radiators or a different impeller, but it's all part of a system, because once the bike got to a certain temperature, if you only changed one thing, it didn't matter. If you were going to change the impeller, then you had to change your radiators, go to a little bit bigger radiator, it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of like a system, and some stuff would help the bike cool quicker, but I didn't notice that with any of the coolants. I just noticed that when right away when we put the water wetter in it, the bike ran, everything stayed cooler, and it cooled a little bit quicker. Like when you would go up a climb and it'd run up to a certain temperature. So at the top of the hill, the temperature would be like 3 to 5 degrees less. And then before you got down to the bottom of the hill, it cools down, and it would get down to wherever the we'll say the temperature it liked to maintain at. It got there a little bit quicker. when I was using the stuff. A little bit more than just standard 50/50, but all the other stuff that we tried, it was all kind of about the same. I mean, it was like 1, 2, 3 degree, 3 degrees maximum. There was only one that did something big. So, and then in the boil over testing that we did, some of them, and I like I said, this was a long time ago. I think we did it. We did it once at Dirt Rider, and we published a whole Dr. Dirt at the time about it with kind of all the results that we did. And then I did some stuff on my own afterwards because I learned some stuff that we didn't do properly during that test. So I went out and redid some of the stuff. But I think the Evans actually did wait longer till it started like spitting stuff out. But once it started spitting stuff out, it didn't stop. I think that's what if I remember correctly, like when it took longer, it held longer, but once it started boiling, essentially, I think it boiled it away from the parts that were really hot, wherever that was. And then it didn't want to do its job, and then the heat spread. And then here's the problem. I don't carry around Evans in my Camelback or whatever. So I had nothing to put in there. And I've been on trail rides with other guys that have boiled out their special coolant. And it's like, oh, I got a whole pack of water here. And they're like, no, you can't put that in there. I can find water a lot of places, especially in your Camelback for my bike when I boil it over. So hopefully that answers that question. I'm sorry about your daughter's bike boiling over. Not slipping the hell out of the clutch. I'm gonna say that's generally where most of the heat comes from. If it's boiling over like that, I would really check to make sure that you don't have an air leak someplace, like in the head gasket, or something where it's pumping. It's pumping some of that cylinder pressure into the because that'll heat it up. That'll heat it up real quick, and then it makes it boil over easy. And the O-rings is it O-ring on those? Yeah, O-rings. Check those O-rings out. So hopefully, Brian, that solves your problem. But yeah, and especially with that heavy cap, it shouldn't be boiling like that. I think I have a 1.6 on mine. Victor asks, do you recommend pulling the ethanol via water bonding and then siphon? So Victor's asking, do I recommend pouring a whole bunch of water into my gas to flush out the ethanol and then re-pouring it? And so there's some videos that went around the internet not too long ago that got pretty popular, like guys that were running these old Harleys that they couldn't have the ethanol in there for some reason or whatnot. But they're pouring water into the gas because it saturates it. It sucks all the ethanol out of the gas, and then it separates, and then they pour out clear glass. Do I recommend doing that? No. That's a lot of work. Just run the gas and keep some fuel. If you're running the gas consistently, it's not a problem. It's when it sits for a while. It seems to be a problem. Most lately, the manufacturers have been, making sure that the fuel lines and things like that, the gaskets. I've even heard that some of the aftermarket manufacturers that make gasket replacement kits inside of carburetors have changed some of the formulations to help them last a little bit longer. So, okay, Christian, listening from the road, he's. I'll pass you. I'm gonna get that motorhome in 10th gear. I'll go flying right past you, Christian. Don't even worry about it. Let's see. Joe from New York is watching. Hey, Joe. Good to see you. Joe's a student of ours from our riding schools, and
Doing a lot of racing.
yeah, he's been racing. I saw where he finished. What did
He did the Vegas.
Vegas to Reno? Yeah, he finished Vegas to Reno. I saw a picture someplace. So, Steve Webb. Steve Webb is the McCooney carburetor guy. Is there an advantage of running silicone hoses over the stock rubber hoses? Steve, don't you know the answer to that question? Are you? But wait, I hope you're talking about the cooling, the radiator system, or not the fuel lines, right? Because they turn into bubbles, right? The silicone. What's stronger? Yeah, I don't know.
I think there's an advantage if you're a silicone dealer.
Silicone, yeah. I don't. I just failed. Just lost my second question. I don't know the answer, Steve. Can you answer that? We'll catch back up there. What George asks? What temperature should I set the Trail Tech fan to come on a 19 KTM 300 XCW? That's a personal question, George. No, it really depends on what you're doing, how much you want to hear it. I've set mine as low as 180 before, which means they're running almost all the time. And just because I know that I'm going to be abusing the bike and I want that fan to just be running the whole time. And then I've set it, I think stock, they come on at about 200, 210 is my recollection. But, you can set it kind of anywhere. But you don't really, you want the bike to be running around 200. Or you want the coolant to be kind of around 200. It seems 180 to 200 seems to be fine. So if and you can watch it on that little gauge, you can see where it's at. So however you have to tune it to kind of keep that temperature, that would probably be the best thing. Silicone hoses do not like the. I saw something there. Silicone. Oh, Chris Real. Now that he's an expert. And you should listen to him. Silicone hose. I think Steve was talking about the radiator because we were talking about radiator stuff earlier. So, hey, how do you like the flasher in the back there? Gabe got on it and made some new things. I see things zooming in my background here. Gives it some perspective. Yeah. So thanks, Gabe, for doing that. Came in here early today and kind of fixed that up. Logan, what else we got to talk about here?
The fuel filter, the throttle tubes, and...
Oh, when we're talking about fuel, pull the Google Tech filters over here. Okay, hold those things up. So on dirtbiketest.com right now, someplace like a row or two down, you can actually read about these Google Tech fuel filters. And so, and this actually kind of ties into some of the ethanol question stuff. This will not separate out ethanol, and if you have water in your fuel and you pour brand new ethanol gas in there, if you poured water into this thing right here, I'd pour water in right now, and it won't go through here. It won't go through the filter. It'll hold it. But if I take ethanol fuel and then there's water, it's like a bag of water, and I take ethanol fuel and I pour it in here, the water will magically disappear because the ethanol sucks it up. So if you have clear gas or you're going to get bad gas or something, these things are great. And I don't know if you can see the top of this one. It's meant to fit inside of a KTM gas tank, and they make them for other ones. This one is meant to slide onto the fuel nozzle when you're pouring it gas in there. And if you are worried about getting dirt or contaminants, or you're in a place where there's bad gas, these things will save you a lot of headaches and hassles and problems. And it's I've got, this was in my Husaberg, and that thing, because it is by far and away, like quite possibly the 570 I'm talking about now, the most powerful, one of the best bikes ever built. Yeah, and since it is really powerful, it does use a lot of gas. And I put a lot of gas. This was in that tank. I put a lot of gas through this thing, and you can see it's a little bit brown, or kind of, you can see a little bit of sediment. It's actually more like almost gray colored down at the bottom. So it's pulling stuff out of mostly good gas, but and then we also had some bad gas that kind of came around, and I even had Mitch that stuff. We remember that the bad gas that was it when we were doing the rally training. Somebody got bad gas. Oh, they all got bad gas down in Arizona. Yeah. Yeah, we had two bikes that were just running horrible, and so they drained the gas out into one of our cans, and then we filtered all the water, and there was a lot of water, and that was ethanol gas, and we still got a lot of water out of it, and junk and sediment. So if you want to learn about fuel filters, these are Google Tech ones. They're available through Best Rest products. Highly recommended if you're riding in places with sketchy gas. And if you ever have to change the fuel filter out of the inside of your gas tank, which is a giant pain in the ass, and I know because I'm going to have to go do one here pretty soon, on another bike that I bought from somebody else who may or may not be in this room. No, it was actually Ray's bike, the Conway bike that I bought. That one, the fuel filter. I'm gonna actually I got to talk about diagnosing problems. Yeah, I diagnose. I'll write that note right there. But that would save you from ever probably having to if you were religious about that, or running the gas through that filter, you'd probably never have to clean the filter inside your tank. But then again, I've got probably a good 500 hours on a couple of bikes, and I've not had to change the fuel filter inside the tank yet. I'm just waiting for the time, and all it takes is one bad load of gas, and it happens. So, okay. Oh, Brian, I use those Google Tech filters in Saudi Arabia. Brian, I need to talk to you about Saudi Arabia. I need to. I want you to compare some terrain in Saudi Arabia with terrain we have over here, just for no particular reason. Yeah, because of rally training, because I'm training some guys and we're looking to do some stuff. You'd be amazed at how much crap they filtered. They can fill quickly. Yeah, they can't fill quickly. No good for a race, but definitely work. Brian, you're mirroring the words that we put in our test. So good. And George did his job. He's on point. He actually put the link up in the forum. And Chris is coming back. Silicone hoses for water are good. Just watch the barb and the fitting. They sometimes slide off. Using a dab of gas at cinch to hold them on. Yeah, because they're slippery, right? Silicone's slippery. Yes. I got that answer right. Yep. Yeah, I think the filters, the Google Tech filters, are pretty popular with the guys that are getting bad gas. And like I said, I've seen it work. And it goes. And then I know one other guy asked me a question, and I'm going to go into that one because he asked about where is it? You're supposed to read this and tell me which one. Oh, yeah. Is this the one here? Okay, yeah. Stephen Walker asked, good evening. Having fun changing out all the plastic fuel filters on our Coyote Trail Adventure KTMs, putting in Wix 33095 steel filters and Nitro Mousses. I don't know why you'd put the Nitro Mousses in the gas tank, but I don't want to get stuck in the trail with a blowout on the fuel filters or a flat. Okay, I get it. We're talking about tires and gas tanks there. My teacher that I didn't pay attention to in school, that told me to try to separate the thoughts and try to keep them into, separate things. Remember that? You're learning that right now, right?
Yeah.
What are you learning? But you're learning suspense.
Yes. He
had me kind of like suspense when I was thinking about putting the Nitro Mousse inside the gas tank. Do those filters blow up inside the gas tanks? I haven't heard of that before. I don't think that KTM would spec a filter, or any manufacturer would spec a filter that actually pop or explode inside the gas tank. But they crack from the ethanol in the gas, I suspect.
No, it's
too much tension on the fittings. Yeah. Okay. I haven't had that happen yet. I've got how many? 7 or 8 of them. So, but maybe they fixed that before I got to them. So, yeah, Google Tech filter, Steven. That might help you out. Okay, we're done with that sheet of paper. We're finished with that one. I'd also like to let's talk about that throttle tube, this ZRT throttle tube. I meant to talk about this last week and the week before. Open that thing up and see what it is. You know what ZRT stands for? Logan, that was you?
No.
Logan? Well, you could read the box. Pull it out. It's zero resistance throttle. Okay, you just missed that question. So what this is, it's a guy back east. He's a friend of Jerry Bernardo's, and so part of the FAQ family. And so you see what Logan's holding up here. What he's holding up is a billet throttle tube and this bar insert with a bearing on the end of it. And it's basically made so that your throttle tube won't be dragging on your handlebar. And I've had this for a while now, and the only reason I haven't put it on one of my bikes is there's actually two reasons. Number one is I have to cut the bar down. So in order to put it on, because you're going to add this bearing on the end, it would make the throttle side stick out a little bit more, so you have to kind of cut the bar down a little bit on one side. And so I haven't actually found the bike that I wanted to cut the bar down on, because I usually run wraparound handguards, and they make a setup where you can put the wraparounds on also. But the other reason is because I know how good these things work. And I've ridden a fair number of factory bikes. And one thing you'll notice is when you ride someone's factory bike or a factory bike that's been well set up is how nice everything is. Everything's straight. Nothing's bent. The stickers are even on straight, which is kind of strange for me. But the levers don't have any free play, and if you've ever walked up and turned the throttle on a really good bike, you go, wow, that is nice and smooth, and they do these kind of things. I remember factory Hondas, like back in I got to ride some in the early 90s, and actually I rode Jean-Michel Bale's CR500, and Brian Lunas was the mechanic, and he literally told me he would kill me if the end of the handlebar touched the ground, because he said he had to spend so much time putting that thing together, and most of it was spent up on the handlebars because Bale he actually had to cut grips in half and bond two grips together because he was that picky about stuff. But like the throttle pull on bikes like that, on factory bikes, there's no resistance and no grip, and this is one of the ways to do it. So if you're searching around for something like this, it's called a zero resistance throttle. And I'm going to probably, since I love my Husaberg so much, and I like turning the throttle on it because it makes more power than your motorcycle for sure. That'd probably be a good bike to cut the bars and throw that thing on, because then I have no reason for not being wide open.
So, on the inside too?
Yeah, well, it has a
Bearing on both sides.
a bearing, both sides. So the whole throttle tube is riding on bearings, and I mean, just that's high level. That's super super nice stuff.
On the inside.
Yeah, and it has little Teflon sleeves that go where the throttle slides inside the housing and everything. So really nice. But if you crash and bend it, actually it'll stand up to abuse. You know how when you crash and you break your plastic throttle housing and it's like there's like you got cruise control or something's dragging? Well, that won't happen. But you probably have to smack it pretty hard to bend it and to cause damage, because it's pretty well built. But nice. Okay. So just put that aside. Don't steal that, Logan. That's going on my Husaberg. Yeah. Let's roll back into the questions over here. Okay. Carol says hi, by the way. Eric Hermstead, how do I decide what size tire to run? Is bigger better? I have a Husky FE350. You may have heard of those. No, I know Husaberg used to make a 350, and KTM makes a lot of them. But that other brand, not really. So maybe not. I ride a variety of terrain in Southern California. So Eric, how do I decide what tire to run? It depends largely on the tire. So based on the grip and stuff, and then so there's certain aspects of a tire that I like for bump compliance, and then there's a certain aspects of it for traction, and then you're kind of bouncing back and forth trying to find, like a happy medium. I tended to, and I've always done this, even in my 125s, when I was desert racing 125s, I ran bigger tires on the bike because I felt like I got better traction, and I didn't necessarily feel like the bigger tire was slowing me down or causing me like a deficit, or was it any sort of it wasn't a disadvantage, because I looked at it kind of like a little bit like a flywheel sometimes. And I also would pay attention. I don't like skidding. I'm not a skid spin guy. I like kind of like more like traction, and would like to keep the tire moving. So so I think if I were to break it down, I would say that if you're kind of like a skidding, you're locking up the bike and then spinning, you want that tire to be spinning and you like riding like that, then a smaller tire, little smaller diameter, maybe a little higher pressure can go your way. But if the bigger tires, sometimes you can run a little bit lower pressure and get even more traction. But on my 350s, I run the Kenda Parker DT most of the time. That's an excellent tire for Southern California. And I'm running the 120/80. 110/100? What size do I run? There's just a bunch of numbers swirling around in my head right now. Those two brain cells, they just started colliding. And you think it's the tequila that causes those problems. 120/80, I think 18 is what I'm running in the rear most of the time. 110/100? 100/100. I'm going to make somebody run outside and go look at my bike. Okay. Their garage is all locked up. You can't see them. I don't remember. I'm running the bigger of them. Not a 140. I think it's a 120/80. I'm guessing. But that's numbers rolling through my head. They don't last very long. Yeah, I know about that. I know exactly what tire I'm running, exactly as much as the brand you're riding. Let's see. Bad fuel. Okay, Chris Real's come back in with the fuel fact. Bad fuel is a fact of life. Trust me. Fuel filtering is important. You can filter water and mud in gas with parts from AutoZono in deepest Mexico. So, or you just carry the Google Tech. Have the Google Tech stuck in your gas tank. Stephen Walker's seen lots of issues with fuel filter splitting. Okay, yeah, a couple people in here have too. I haven't, but I've actually, I've probably replaced 2 or 3 different fuel filters inside the tank, and I've just done it with the stock plastic filters. So I haven't had that issue yet. So I'm sure when I do, then I'll complain. George posted up the ZR throttle link. Awesome, George. Thanks again. Logan, Heather says, how is Silent Logan doing?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Are you mad at Heather for saying that?
No.
No? But you're taking it all in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the question I wanted you to answer. Why don't you which one of these questions did I want you to answer? Maybe it was that other one. Okay. Yeah, why don't you start with this one here? Read that one off. This may be a long shot.
The whole thing?
Well, just get started and I'll cut in. I mean, I'm not going to let you talk too much. Kidding?
This may be a long shot with hearing back from you, but thought I would give it a shot. I just watched your video about the JD Tuner, which is the best one I could find. Thanks for the info. I have a 2019 500 EX CF and live in Santa Barbara, California. I'm headed out this week for a 5-day, 800-mile ride in Utah, and it will be my first real high elevation ride.
Okay. Okay, so I'll keep answering. You get ready to keep going there. It was a long shot that I would answer your question. I mean, this is Tech Talk Taco Tuesday. That's what we do. Okay, so glad you're riding a 500 EXC. That's a KTM, by the way. Those are the orange ones. I made mine white, but it's still a KTM. Okay, keep going.
I have a JD Tuner installed with the FMF pipe, reeds removed, etc. And it's on the open exhaust setting recommended in the manual. It seems to run really good here locally at zero about 5,000 feet.
Yeah, 0 to 5,000 feet. Okay.
On our trip, we will be riding at 6,000 to 12,000 feet. And I'm thinking it could be a little rich up there, or should it self-adjust enough to be good at those elevations?
Okay. And then he asks, is there a good rule of thumb or recommended setting I can change to if it starts to get a little weird? So just on the tuner, and any tuner that you install that basically interrupts the signal that's going to the fuel injection nozzle, that tuner has nothing to do with the compensation that the bike's doing. It's kind of completely separate. So whatever that tuner does, it's independent of what the gauges on the bike are telling the bike to do. That's the kind of the purpose of it. It kind of cheats the system. So your bike will adjust for altitude and temperature, which is air pressure and air temperature, on its own. It has nothing to do with the JD tuner. And so it would do that whether you are riding in Santa Barbara or you're riding up in Colorado. It will figure it out. And that's something that the manufacturer programs those parameters into. And so it's not the tuner doing it. So if and generally whatever setting, if it works good wherever you're at, it's probably going to work good wherever you're going. That's just like your car does. You don't really it'll lose power because of course you're going up, there's less oxygen and it's leaning the bike out, so it's putting less fuel in there. But the good thing about that is if you don't like the way that it self-adjusts, you can override it just like you did at sea level. You've overrided the standard setting and you can adjust it a little bit. So if it does start feeling rich for some reason, you can change that. You can lean it out a little bit. I don't on any of the bikes that I have that tuner on, I do not change it when I go up in altitude. I've never had to change it. It seems like it stays the same and the feel stays the same when I change in altitude. But what I have noticed is that when the temperature makes a drastic change, like if I'm riding around, it's 100 degrees one day and then all of a sudden it's 40 degrees the next day, I will change my setting a little bit, especially on, it kind of depends on the bike. Hondas like the pump squirt adjusted or the transients adjusted, and the KTMs tend to like the three isolated ranges, the green, the yellow, and the red, adjusted a little bit based on temperature. And it's more of a feel thing, kind of how I want the throttle response to be, but it's so simple to change. It's like you're just pushing buttons. As long as you know where your setting was, it's really easy to change it, ride it for a minute or two, and go, that's better. And you can actually set it into the different ranges, and it waits about 10 seconds before it goes back, before it clicks back into the non-adjusting mode. And every time, you can adjust it, and as long as you shut the throttle down and open it back up, you will feel the adjustment, that you've made. So you can make big changes and see if it makes a difference and decide if that's the direction you want to go. So I always say, don't be afraid to play with that stuff. I mean, even if they send you a recommended setting, I mean, maybe your, pipe, generally they do pretty good with the recommended settings, but maybe your pipe is a little bit different than the one that they tested with when they did their setting, or, the fact that you have the reeds in or out could make a big difference. There's lots of different stuff. So don't be afraid of that. And where do we? Let's see. Maybe. So he was asking kind of the changes. That's why I kind of got into it. Don't be like you're going to be hard pressed to feel like what we'll call a half. There's 6 different things. You'd be hard pressed to feel like a half, but maybe like a whole 1 number jump. You would probably notice that. But don't be afraid to do that thing. I like this part. How's this part? What did he say here? What's that? Read that part right there. I'm just going to start patting myself on the back right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know you spend a lot of time tweaking on these things and are one of the best riders in the world.
Oh, yeah.
A hero of mine since back in the day.
So, and he puts that in there and he doesn't think I'm going to answer that question or read it on the air. Are you kidding me? That's a straight way to the front of the line there. So thank you, Justin Carter. Let's see. Thanks for appreciating our informative videos and watching us every once in a while. Now I've pissed my wife off, I'm sure. Let's see. George says, looks like the 120-100 in the DBT test photos. Man, George is on it today. How can you see that with the blurry screen? Did you wipe your screen off, George? So, or did our connection get better, or does Jim not have good Wi-Fi at his house? I'm not really sure. Hey, there's Kate. Kate, do you see the thing up on the board, Kate? That's the Kate's Bars. They're an official sponsor of Jimmy Lewis Off-Road Training and Dirt Bike Test. Because when I'm lazy and I don't buy breakfast foods, I go straight to the Kate's Bar. There's always a Kate's Bar in my packs, my backpacks, and stuff like that. In fact, I had one for I'll call it brunch today. Yeah. So thanks, Kate, for supporting. Hopefully I'll see you up at the KTM Adventure Rider Rally. And my wife says I'm good. Yep, I am really good. Just like that guy said. Okay, we've got to go to this question here. This Jimmy, I ride a WR450 everywhere. Continue.
Moab to MNTS?
That's mountains.
Okay. Mountains and everywhere in between. Hard enduro guys run low PSI with a
Tubliss system.
Tubliss.
That's a Tubliss is it's a really high pressure inner tube that squeezes your tire and seals the air, so it makes it run like a tubeless tire.
Mm-hmm. Desert riders run Mousse bibs.
Bib Mousse, yes.
Old school guys just run 12 through 14 PSI with their heavy duty tubes.
You're being very generalistic with your assumptions there. What was his name? We didn't get his. Oh, Curtis. Yeah, very. Because there's some people that crisscross. They do some different things. Okay, keep going.
It seems like you run anything below 10 PSI with tubes, you're gonna get a pinch flat. Are the benefits of low PSI really worth it? Have you ever tested tube saddles?
Yes.
Do you trust Tubliss at high speeds?
Yes.
If you were to ride light dual sport, what is a good all-around combo?
So light dual sport. That's probably what I do. Is light dual sport. That would be because I'm not really an adventure rider. As I don't have an Instagram account with 20,000 photos of me in adventure predicaments. So I'm not an adventure rider. I'm a light dual sport rider. I have been going to so I have a lot of bikes with Tubliss. I kind of inherited those, Bob. And some of them were Gen 1 Tubliss, which gave that system a very bad reputation. Gen 2 or Gen 3 or whatever they're on now is much, much better. Then I also run quite a bit of Nitro Mousses, and I've run all the different kinds of mousses. Michelin's for a while when I was racing rally, and then every once in a while I get some of the takeoffs from my guys that are doing rally testing, and I love it when they're doing mousse testing, because then there's some really good mousses laying around. But I've been running the Tubliss, the Nitro Mousses quite a bit lately, and then of course I've run tubes forever. And even when the mousse thing was kind of getting popular, I stuck with tubes quite a bit longer, just because I never had any quote failures from tubes when they're properly set up. And so you mentioned a couple interesting things here. You mentioned the hard enduro guys running low PSI with tubeless systems. Let you know a secret. Most of the hard enduro guys run very, very soft mousses. In fact, depending on their sponsor, whatever they do, some of them have drilled out mousses where they actually have holes in them. Some of them get extremely soft mousses, or they train on a mousse until it gets to the right thing. Then they save that one for the race that they want to use. And they're running mousses because they just don't want to have any failures. And they've tested enough to know how long that mousse will last and when there'll be a failure. So I think amateur hard enduro guys, I think a lot of them have been trying the tubeless type systems. I think that's going a little bit out of favor, because when you start running really low pressure in the and I think it was a little kind of a misconception, because they're running soft tires, like soft gummy tires that tend to have soft sidewalls. And with tubeless systems, it starts tearing and twisting on the sidewalls. and those things get really flat, and the sidewalls don't have a lot of integrity, and they get pinches in the sidewalls. So like rocks going through the sidewall, or smashing into it, so they're tearing the sidewalls, and or the tire twists enough on the rim where it can actually leak a little bit of air out and slowly leaks out a little bit more air, or you impact the center tube enough to where you can have a failure there. And in dual sport riding, and I guess it's my quote light dual sport riding, I've had the tubeless system at high speeds slowly lose its air, like going 90 miles an hour down a washboarded road. After 20 miles, all of a sudden I've got a flat tire, and there's no evidence of anything doing it. And I think it's the bumps and just the air kind of hissing out. Somehow it's twisting. But when I run tubeless systems, I like to run a heavy duty tire. So I run like the Kenda Parker, or like a Dunlop, like the AT81, a stiff sidewall tire at like a low pressure around 8 or 10 psi with the tubeless system, and that seems to work a lot better than running a soft sidewall tire like a Kenda Equilibrium or some of the extreme enduro tires. The just sidewalls just don't hold up to it. So when you're doing tubeless, run a hard tire. It really works, because you can run the low pressure, but then the bike starts wallowing around. And there's all these different handling aspects that come into these different systems you've talked about. With the tube, I pretty much run 11 or 12 PSI. Maybe up to 14 is about the max that I ever go, but I don't like smashing into rocks, and I do not get pinch flats. Primarily because I do not smash into rocks. Okay, I don't dent rims that often, although you go look at my bikes and you'd think differently, but that's because I loan them out to kids that are like Logan when they're about 16 years old, and then they want to show me how fast they are, and then all of a sudden my rim has a smiley in it. Not me. So number one is the pinch flats occur from smashing into stuff that you shouldn't be hitting, which, okay. Then you should run higher PSI. I would say go around it. But anyways, the other thing is improper tube installation is probably the number one cause of pinch flats. Like 8 out of 10 pinch flats that I see, it happens at the rim lock because the tube was installed under the rim lock, or it happens where the tube was installed underneath the bead of the tire. 8 out of 10 that I've seen on the trail. I'm not kidding. Front or rear, doesn't matter. It seems like it's very rarely a quote pinch, and by pinch you mean you've squeezed that tire and that rubber so hard that it pinched and caused the tube to rip or tear. Generally, there's something else in there. I also put baby powder, a fair amount of baby powder in my tubes, in the tube when I assemble them and stuff, and I think that helps a little bit with this. But I don't have that many issues with the pinching. The tube saddle, yes, I've tested it. It's a very complicated way around a problem that I don't feel exists. As I've just said, I don't get that many pinch flats. The one thing that the tube saddle will do, it'll make it very difficult to install your tube underneath the bead of your tire. So in that sense, yes, it will eliminate the pinch flats, but that little bit of foam, that little extra bit of foam that it's doing, that it's cushioning around the tire, I don't think that's, because you can take that foam and you can squeeze it with you can squeeze it down with your fingers, and you can get it to where it's pretty hard. And at that point, I don't think it's that much softer than, quote, the smashing tire that's around it and the rubber that's all compressing. If it's going to pinch, I don't think that's going to help. But man, was it complicated to get that tube installed, because you have this extra thing that's in there. It doesn't let the tire seat down in the bead very easily, and it makes it kind of easier to get your tube stuck underneath your rim lock. So just because there's a lot of tension and tightness in there. So I have tested them. Not a fan, and I don't think that it's the solution. The solution for you is, man, it was a long Nitro Mousses. Go with Mousse. Run the Bib Mousse. Bib Mousse is a Michelin thing. Nitro Mousse is a Nitro Mousse thing. Tubliss is the name of the company. New Tech. That's right. They brand everything so well. You'd know their product just based on the name. So yeah, and they have some brand new. What are they calling them? Platinum Nitro Mousses. I think they're instead of being a black color, I guess they're a silver color. They are sending me some. Actually, go look at Highland Cycles. I think Morgan just mounted one up. I didn't get a chance to watch that video, but if you're on the Facebooks, follow Highland Cycles and watch Morgan. Hopefully, he gets black mousse goo all over him when he does that. Yeah. So there is that. So mousse is your answer. And the Nitro Mousses specifically, and I've had good luck with Michelin's when they're fresh, but you got to be careful when they've been sitting on a dealer's floor for 6 months because then they're not quote fresh. The Nitro Mousse is not so picky about this, but I've run 80 and 90 and 100 miles. I did a test where I went like almost 30 minutes at 100 miles an hour. I was wide open on a KTM 500 on a dry lake bed doing a big giant circle and tried to melt a Nitro Mousse and was not successful. So it was hard on my bike. So anyways, run the mousse. That's the best thing. And on durability on those things, I get usually I'll go through 2 to 2.5 tires before I start feeling the integrity of the mousse. And don't go with the soft ones. Go with the normal ones. And for dual sport, and you'll be fine. The soft ones, the bike tends to wallow around a little bit. And I mean, maybe if you're just doing extreme enduro, I think that's okay. But I'm kind of sticking. I've got some soft ones that I've been trying to burn up for a while, and now they need to just go on extreme enduro bikes. So okay, let's see here. Got some other questions. Question for Logan. If memory serves me, last time Jimmy talked about using more legs and less arms, keeping better balance. Other than attending his school, you got any specific tricks for that?
If you're able to pull one hand off.
Let's see. How many words did you use that time? If you're able to pull. You did that in under 10 words. Okay, so explain it a little bit better, more clear. So if you're balanced and you're doing everything right, you can do what?
You can take your hand off the handlebar.
But we don't recommend doing that, right? No. But you should feel like you can take your hand off the handlebar. Which you think about it, it means you're standing on your feet. Because if you're pushing on the handlebars and you take one hand off and you continue to push on the bars, the bike will turn and then you'll kind of like lose control and everything. So the idea is you feel like you take your hands off the handlebars is probably better than just one. Yeah. But Dimitri, did he answer that question? You get to be the judge of that. If he doesn't, he's gonna have to do push-ups. That's what we can do, push-ups. Heather asks, do the apps that control the tuners have a return to base setting? So when your last two brain cells don't remember the last setting. No, they don't have a return to setting. They stay wherever you set them. That's why you'll notice on all of my bikes, I have that piece of that sticker on the forks with the settings written on them. That's why I write down the settings on my suspension on bikes. I write them in pen on the frame or on the shock body because those two brain cells, they don't really remember too much. Let's see. Dennis is telling Kate that they're good. Good. Yeah, Dennis has been here a few times. He's had those Kate spars. Justin Bradley says tire balls. I think he's joking. I think. But no, there was a thing called tire balls, and they Scott Summers, his dad actually invented them, and he used those things successfully for a long time. And they were they were having problems with mousses failing at the time, and that was their way to come back with it. I've heard of people putting tennis balls in their stinking tires. So, I mean, hey, you just go on YouTube and start watching. Just Google any sort of. If you have a question for me, you should go Google the question on YouTube, or let YouTube show you the answer. And it's just like me trying to be a contractor, like remodeling a bathroom. Like there's 20 different ways to do everything. And about 19 of the people that have the time to put a video up on the internet should not be able to do it. and it's the task is in finding that one guy that hopefully you run into me, I hope, that is giving you, 90% good information, Logan? Unless it's tonight, then it's 80%. Yeah. So 80% of the good information you're getting tonight, unless you ask me questions about silicone or something, and then I have to refer to a petroleum engineer. But other than that, what were we talking about? Tire balls. Oh, somebody else. Tire balls. Oh, yeah. I don't know if they're still around. And now people are joking because I said balls. And George found it. Let's see. Tire balls are still around. I started running them. Love them so far. Man, I'm glad you like them. I know that they were difficult to install. I remember there being, and they required a lot of lube, and they were messy. And I didn't. What do you do with all those balls when you're done with them? So, okay. What other notes do we have here to talk about, Logan? How are we doing? We've gone for an hour already. Oh, I got to think. Hey, first of all, I got to thank Jerry Bernardo, man. Jerry's been drumming up some new designs. Jerry is the Fuck You Racing. There's that shirt over there. You see that shirt over in the? It's kind of behind your microphone on the camera, but he's been helping us with some of those logos you see on the Dirt Bike Tech Talk Taco Tuesday. He took that awesome Husaberg logo and turned it into a Tech Talk logo for us, which was super cool. Turned it into a logo for them and for us. He used to paint helmets, and there was a pretty cool video on the internet of some guy in some third world country painting a helmet on top of a guy's shoulder. It was on his head. And they put a little overspray tape on his shoulders and stuff like that. But the guy was sitting there and he was painting a helmet there, and they sent it to Jerry. And you had to see Jerry's reply. Something about the fumes, because that's what Jerry used to do. Hopefully my buddies Marco and Mark are healing up. Marco tried to be a Hoderman, unfortunately, on a UTV. It didn't work out. And I think Mark had lingering injuries from previous desert racing that he had fixed up. He had a picture of his cooler. We had his soda in his cooler, and when I saw the picture, I said, "Oh, that's not a good cooler. It's the one they run the cooling stuff through. So when you're on your therapy, that they keep the swelling down." But hopefully you guys get better. And we have Erica Muxlow, who's helping us out with our website. She's at the Kawasaki Intro riding the new Kawasaki KLX 300 and KLX 230. She's probably eating a really nice dinner with the Kawasaki folks tonight. And in a week or two, we have Ryan Nitzen, who gets to go be a factory Honda off-road rider at the Big Six Grand Prix. Riding, I don't know if he's riding the 450 or the 250, the CRF 450 RX or the CRF 250 RX. But we'll have some reports on that. I know it was a little slow on the websites this week. We didn't put a whole lot of stuff up there. And there's Jerry. He joined in just after I started saying bad things about him. All his paint sniffing times. Let's see. And Victor wants to know, if you were to use tire balls and they overheat, do they turn blue and hard? No, they tended to get black and gooey. I've seen them before. Let's see. Yeah, Jerry's ears were burning, and they should have. Unlike his nostrils and his throat in the paint doing days. I think we answered all the questions. With that, if there's any last minute questions, I can answer that. I saw someone give us a thumbs up. See the thumbs up go flying up there? That means we did a good job, Logan. You didn't increase your word count this week. You're kind of like a little quiet over there. Yeah. So what were you going to talk about? You had a subject for this week.
Oh, me getting a RM 125 last night.
You got an RM 125. So you have a YZ 250, but evidently that's your dad's?
Yes.
Okay. So you're moving up off the mini bikes.
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, it sounds like you are because you keep blowing them up. So RM125. What year is that?
2001.
2001. How old are you?
Born in 05, so 13.
13, and that means that bike's quite a bit older than you. It's a Suzuki too,
Yeah.
and you bought it from John, and that's Big John, who you've seen co-host on the show. You think he's playing a joke on you?
I don't know.
Yeah, shrugging your shoulders doesn't work on the podcast, Logan. You got to talk into
Yeah.
that microphone, buddy. So, you think he's playing a joke on you? Was he? You say this thing. You said it was cherry. Dad
Yeah.
chimes in and says it's cherry.
Brand new.
It's brand new, low mileage. Did John race it?
One owner.
No, John never wrote it.
John never rode it.
Not really wrote it.
Oh, he just in some of his eBay
His
internet
stuff he does, yeah.
training. Yeah, got this thing. So you rode it down the street.
Yes.
And you didn't blow it up,
No.
and it ripped.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, but you said it didn't have a lot of torque.
Well, compared to the 85, yes, it did.
Okay.
And to the 250, it did not.
Okay. And so when are we going to go riding on this thing?
Soon, I hope?
I want to ride it. Can I ride it?
Sure.
I'll let that thing sing. Yeah, the RM125 was a good 125. They like all Suzukis. Maybe the 125 not as good as the 250s, but man, they turned good. And the RM125 always had just a really good, solid power band. And I remember, like from when I was a kid, when I was your age, I was watching guys like Mark Barnett just kill it. I mean, like when I think RM125, I think Mark Barnett, Moto X Fox boots. I remember I wanted those so bad, and because he was a Suzuki factory rider back then when they had 125 national motocross.
Yeah.
So and then let's see, Damon Huffman was a RM125 guy. This guy I knew, used to ride with Damon every once in a while, and man, Shane Trittler rode on the back of a YZ125 on the back of Damon's YZ120 at the Vegas Supercross after he did a flip and landed on the back of Damon's bike. And that was an RM125 ride. Shane Trittler was a guy I used to test Dirt Bike Magazine with. So, anyways, with that, I got a couple more stories here. We got questions still in here. Gonna do this really good. Victor says thanks for the tech talk. So next week, if I'm back next week, next time Logan's on, Logan's going to give us a report on how his 125 days are going.
Okay.
We're going to find out why his Super Mini keeps blowing up. Does he just twist? Does he twist the throttle? Does he ride it like it's a?
This is not have been his fault.
Not a bit. Who built the motor? You did?
Yeah.
Well, you got to bring that stuff over here.
I missed something on this.
Yeah. Let's see. Do you like the sprint enduro type events? Think about yes, I like the sprint. It's kind of like old ISDE qualifiers. I mean, it's basically or 6 days kind of format. That's what sprint enduro is. Maybe a little more motocross than it was back in my day. Yeah. I think it's just another form of racing that I think is pretty fun. And let's see, you'd be best leaving for Breckenridge right after the show, or else I'm gonna yard you, Christian. You don't. My motorhome has a way bigger motor than your truck, and it's got 10 speed. So the thing will just sing. Actually, you try to draft that thing, you might not even be able to hang on. So let's see. With that, I'll save the story about the Red Gobe hat for a later date. I want to thank Chirby's and Kate's, and what else is scrolling back up there? TM Design Works. We need to talk about getting our sponsorship stuff all done here pretty soon, and it's getting past Logan's bedtime. So probably has to go do some homework. What do you got? Singing practice or something a little later?
No.
No. Okay, got it. So with that, we're gonna take off. Thanks for joining in, Logan. Tell everybody bye.
Bye.
We'll see you on the trail. Cheers.